Well, not anymore. Now that Jason's here.
Now that Jason's here, you can't fucking see it. Wait, where did he go? Did we fucking lose him? Whatever, we're recording. I have no idea where.
Cool.
Did he? Why did he go to the? Jason. I don't know, dude. I don't know where he is. Whatever, we're recording. Yeah, it's yeah. So I tried to make it like a computer voice. God damn it! Hold on. Stop recording. Is he back?
Greetings.
There he is. All right. All right.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, fuck. Hold on. Fuck.
Apologies for the tardiness.
You're good, man. I'm trying to record on this computer. Okay.
Tisk.
All right. Recording.
I see a recording button. Looks good.
Yeah. So, I tried to turn y'all's book into an audiobook just for myself, so it would read it to me. Yeah, I was just telling Justin that, like, dude, I can't read for more than like 5 minutes. I go fucking crazy. That's just who I am. My mind is just jumping around. But if it's an audiobook, I can listen to it for hours and hours and hours. So I got my phone to read y'all's book to me from Kindle. But the problem is it's like a computer voice. So it's like, I felt like I was getting like navigation directions. It was harder to pay attention. So I've been listening all day yesterday and today, just trying to listen to it again. And all I keep thinking is fucking Jason, you need to read it, man. You've got the English voice. You've got the narrator voice. You need to read it. Because listening to it in the Siri voice, it's hard to pay attention because it's already talking about shit that's over my head. It's talking about fucking nuclei and magnetic turbulence. And like, it's hard enough for me to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and I'm just, I can't fucking, I don't know when I feel like it's giving me directions, and at the same time it's trying to teach me about like how much deuterium or how much how many micrograms of lithium are in per liter of seawater. But it sounds like Siri. But when I listen to a normal audiobook with like a reader, I can listen to anything. So roundabout way of saying, Jason, you need to utilize your accent, and you need to narrate the book. Justin was just starting to say something before Jason dipped out on us. What were you saying about the audiobook?
Yeah, I was thinking that it's a very good idea. The one concern I had was the pictures are pretty important. But I think we could just have Jason describe the pictures.
Yeah.
To just kind of pause and then collect himself and then give like an audio description of what's going on in the figure. Yeah.
No, that would be fine. Yeah. That's what I just listened to it today, just it describing it, and or whatever you guys wrote in it. And I would just, piece it together. It's I think for most people, at least I can speak for people that listen to audiobooks, they're willing to sacrifice that. Like, okay, I can't see, because almost every audiobook you buy, it'll have like, you'll get an email with the corresponding PDF, but I've listened to 95 books and I've never once looked at the fucking PDF. I just don't care. I'm just going to listen. So yeah, that's a sacrifice I think most people would be willing to make.
We can start now, Tommy, if you like. I have the book here.
Let's just start. Yeah,
9 minutes past 3 p.m.
So we get
for about a day.
So I get figure what we'll probably be finished by midnight. So yeah, let's start.
Depends how fast I read.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've been listening to it on 1.5 speed, so maybe that wasn't helping. But yeah, the Tokamak Fusion Reactor. Fucking goddamn it! But yeah, I don't know, man. Oh yeah, I guess for everyone listening, why don't you guys introduce yourself? I always forget to do that when I have guests on for a second time. Yeah, introduce yourselves.
Okay. My name is Justin Ball. That hasn't changed since last time, nor has much about my life. I'm still working at EPFL doing fusion research. Fortunately, since I'm a theoretician, being stuck at home doesn't really affect my job too much. In fact, maybe I'm a bit more productive than usual. I don't know. When it first started, I definitely wasn't, but now that I'm kind of adapting to the new normal, it's easier to get writing done.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason, introduce yourself for the good people listening, for all those that haven't listened to the last podcast.
Okay, well, greetings, everybody. My name is Jason Parisi. Like Justin, I'm also a theorist and a fusion scientist, and I'm currently in my final year of my PhD. And I'm actually currently writing my thesis, so during this pandemic, it's challenging for everybody, but like Justin, over time, I've got a bit better. In the past I think it's been 3 weeks, actually, since we last got together and talked. Actually, I think it was 20 days, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, so research is going pretty well. I think I've found a nice new result, so hopefully there'll be a paper on that soon. But yeah, apart from that, not much else. I've metabolized, I've slept, etc. But apart from that, pretty much the same.
I've metabolized and slept. Jesus Christ, you guys really are scientists. I've metabolized and time has passed. Yeah, it's yeah, man, really not a lot's happened. The only thing I can think, and I think I brought it up with someone I talked to, was we actually managed to tie it into fusion. Is there not a more prime example than right now? So obviously this is from a global pandemic as opposed to war. But let's say there was a war where effectively like international travel was cut down to a standstill, right? Someone would think like World War II, it's like shipping lanes is like stopped. So let's just imagine that this is a war instead of pandemic. We couldn't fucking, without like a military escort, we couldn't get the oil and shit we needed. What better time is there to illustrate the need for, well, granted, in America, we have our oil reserves. But what better time is there to illustrate the need for unlimited independent energy than right now? Like, let's imagine every country was cut off from every other country. Is there not a better time to, hold up like Jehovah's Witnesses, but like fusion, like knock on the door, like, have you heard about our Lord and Savior fusion power? Like, is there not a better time than right now, or is that not the case?
I think any time is great.
Well, of course, Jeff. Yeah, of course. I'm forgetting who I'm talking to, but like, well, I mean, it makes me think of what Graham Hancock said about asteroid defense, and he's talking about just how lethal asteroids are, and how just like that we could have modern civilization reset to the Stone Age, if we're lucky, the Stone Age. And right now, the aggregate global funding for asteroid detection and potential deflection is less than the amount of money that it takes to run a single McDonald's franchise location. And that made me think of a line from Yale's book, where it's the U.S. funding for fusion is less than peanut subsidies. Yeah, it kind of...
it is?
Yeah, it kind of... It's a little... It makes you kind of lose a little bit of faith when it's like, what the fuck are we doing? But do you think there's... Especially
in that a lot of these problems, like you mentioned, asteroid defense, you can't really play catch-up very effectively in the last inning, right?
No.
And it's the same for fusion of you really need sustained effort to reap the rewards to be successful, and you don't want to get caught needing it but not having it.
Yeah, with asteroid defense, you really you can't play catch up at all. It's like, I think it was Michio Kaku who said asteroids are the universe's way of flying by a planet and saying, hey, how's that space program coming along? It's just a little reminder. It's the shot across the bow. It's when the bullet cracks right by your ear, and it's oh shit. And that's what asteroids are. Just like, hey guys, what's going on? How's your space program going on? But it kind of seems like maybe global warming that's sort of like it's like right now. Let's look at how much the pandemic has shifted our society in seemingly a matter of weeks. Just everything's turned upside down. Like the momentum of the last century is seemingly just thing of the past, and it's now everything's completely upside down. This is, to quote Yale's book, this is peanuts compared to what global warming, when true climate change comes in, true like changes in the sea levels. It's almost like this right now is like global warming, like diet global warming. It's like here's a little like taste of what radical change will be like. Again, is this not the shot across the bow for like fusion? Like, hey guys, like if you can't handle COVID-19, how are you going to handle rising sea levels? How are you going to, and it's kind of like, how's that renewable energy thing coming along? Or how's that clean energy thing coming along? It's kind of like the asteroid. Do you think that will shift any policy or funding? Or do you think that as soon as life goes seemingly back to normal, that we're all going to put our heads in the sand and just kind of keep going back to the way things were?
I think it's definitely true that the speed with which new ideas can be adopted during this crisis is quite remarkable. Like the idea of sending every single American $1,200 or however much it is, or at least in many European countries, of supporting 80 to 85% of the wages of private businesses, the government effectively paying those wages, right? Or a universal basic income. So I think that now is a really good opportunity for ideas that were perhaps not testable just during kind of normal economic times to be tested. And I think that one of the underlying themes is resilience. So resilience of the economy to external shocks, right? So this pandemic is obviously a shock to lots of us. And we're not particularly resilient because you see the massive contraction in economic output that is occurring. The problem with climate change is it's so much slower. It's not like the asteroid, right? It's not even like a pandemic. It's just like the temperature keeps going up a little bit. And it's hard. There are events like, if Florida experiences a mass flooding event or Miami goes completely underwater and they're not able to save it, then yes. But even so, it's slower. But I think you raise an excellent point, which is a really good time to just kind of grab the initiative and say, look, we need to make our economy more resilient. And obviously investing in fusion is part of that, although unfortunately at the moment, on the current timescale, it doesn't look like fusion is going to be ready fast enough, at least at the current levels of funding, to really be able to make a dent in the amount of carbon that we put out. If it's accelerated somehow, then perhaps it will be. But yes, I think that fusion is obviously in these kind of circumstances, it's you mentioned the fact that global trade has decreased significantly. Fusion does to some extent allow countries to be more independent, which is to start up a fusion plant, at least the first generation plants. You need deuterium and tritium, at least in terms of fuel. Deuterium is abundant, and I think pretty much any country could probably synthesize it. Tritium is harder because it's got a half-life of about 13 years, so it's not naturally occurring. So you have to get it from somewhere, and usually we get it from fission reactors. And once you start off a fusion reactor with however many kilograms of tritium you want, as long as the technology called tritium breeding is good enough, it just keeps going for the rest of the life cycle of the plant. You just need to keep feeding it tritium and lithium. So yes, it does make you more independent, but it also makes you more... lithium. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Justin. Deuterium and lithium. But it does also make you a lot more interdependent as well, right? From the technology, because at least to start up a fusion plant, it basically rests on everybody's accomplishments before that.
Yeah. It does kind of seem, things that would normally, things like UBI, it was always like, well, how are we going to do that? Harumph. We got this going on and that going on, and, we got to go about our business life. But with this, it's kind of like, it's almost like the foot in the door is keeping it from closing. It's like, well, we're all stuck at home. like, we kind of got to try this. Do you think that it will be seized upon? Do you think that there will be lasting change from this in terms of, obviously, that you said it's what has to happen. There has to be an increased level of funding for fusion. Do you think any actual effective change will happen, or do you think it will remain in the realms of Zoom podcasts and posturing and nothing more? Do you think it will happen? Because it's if there is a time, it's like the shakeup is now. It's like everything is, all the phrase was, it's like what Vladimir Lenin said, there are decades where nothing happens, then there are weeks where decades happen. It's kind of like what it feels like right now. Like, is everything shifting? Is everything shifting? Do you think anything will actually happen with this? Or again, do you think it will just stay a speech?
I mean, I definitely think that there will be dramatic change. I think the connection, especially to fusion, is pretty tenuous, but I do think it will shape the way people think in a lot of ways. Like, the pandemic really stresses the importance of global cooperation, basically, because, unless you're an island, like literally an island, the pandemic brings us all together in both the way that we want and the way that we don't want, where your neighbor's actions do affect you. And so I think that will have a significant impact on people's political views and what's acceptable, and I hope the world's a better place as a result.
Now,
I would add that countries, like Justin said, I mean, it's hard to see the connection, but one possibility is countries are going to be to kind of start the economy again, right? It depends. I don't know how quick the recovery is going to be, but an industrial policy of a country might be, let's invest a lot of money in infrastructure and technology, and fusion might be one of those, for example.
Do you think,
could be a good chance to do it.
Well, yeah. Well, didn't President Trump say a couple weeks ago that he was like, what better time than now? And he wanted to put forth a $2 trillion infrastructure bill. I mean, it's kind of like with the defense contractors, like how they would talk about like the Reagan era. And it's like, if you just showed up with any idea whatsoever and you're like, hey, we can fuck up the Soviets, it was basically like the purse strings open and you got like, you got a shovel and it's like, get the cash. And it's, especially with SDI, it was like, if you can propose anything that will just fuck up the communists, you can have funding, you can have a sizable amount. Or right after 9/11, it was like, if you have any idea of how to like fight insurgency in Afghanistan and Iraq, again, it was like the purse strings opened up. Didn't matter how fucking stupid the idea was, you could do anything. Do you think that's what will lead to it? Do you think it will be a massive global or just American spur in infrastructure, and it's almost like everyone's going to get their piece of the pie? Do you think fusion will get a necessary bump just by association?
I really couldn't tell you. It is interesting that there is a field, plasma medicine, that's just exploded in the past 10 years or so, and it's a brand new field. People really don't understand it well, but people can treat some medical ailments with plasma medicine. It's really the most relevant thing I can think to the pandemic. But it's unusual medical treatment because people don't even really know how to measure the dose of plasma medicine, right? So plasma is a source state of matter, and it turns out that if you have like a wound, like older people often have wounds that just don't heal properly, like an ulcer. But if you basically hit it with plasma and treat it repeatedly, it is very successful at getting the body to heal it.
So do you think that would indirectly lead to more fusion research? Okay, let me ask this: what is the global annual budget for fusion? What is the aggregate? What is the tab?
So right now there's about $2 billion, a little bit less than $2 billion a year worldwide spent on fusion, and that's almost exclusively from governments.
Jesus.
Does that include ITER? That's all including ITER as well, right?
Yes, yeah.
And the US is what?
For context, renewables is about a factor of 5 higher, maybe 6 or 7 if you include private R&D, and fission's about the same level as renewables.
Yeah, $2 billion, just $1,200 for every American. That's, I mean, I can't do math. So let's just say it's 1,000. That right there is $343 billion.
Yeah, to put it in context, the average American pays $1.50 worth of taxes for fusion research. Yeah, $1.50.
$1.50. Jesus Christ.
Which is as much as you pay for peanut subsidies as well.
Yeah.
Isn't it $3 for peanut subsidies? It's about twice as much.
I don't know. Depends on the peanut crop. I'm sure.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God. But so I'm trying to tie this in with how you would effectively lead private industry into something that, like you guys talked about last time, is it's kind of antithetical to privatization and capitalization, because of the startup costs, and there's no guaranteed return. And right now it's sort of, like you said, a little bit of game theory. Everyone put in $1, let's see if it goes farther. Everyone put in $1, everyone put in $1, because once it's figured out, everyone gets whatever you can get out of it. So no one wants to be the poor sucker that puts in $100 when everyone else puts in $1. Bam, you figure it out, and now everyone's getting it, and the tab wasn't split evenly. But so to tie it into privatization, you'd have to get some eccentric, rich, brilliant motherfucker, I don't know, Elon Musk, who, by the way, in like the last month or so, said that, and it really hasn't made a lot of news, and I don't know how it hasn't. He said he's pretty sure that we will not get to Mars in his lifetime. He's gone from like gung-ho, like we're going
Really?
to... Yeah. I mean, I know the Musk timeline is always like, you know, it's like 10 times more optimistic than reality. Like, we're going to be on Mars by 2020. But even now, he was saying, you know, like 2020, or, you know, up until like this year, he was saying like 2024 will send like the very first just whatever. But in like the last, I think it was in March or February, he said he doesn't think it will happen in his lifetime. And he said he was very depressed about it. Would someone like him, where you could use the exhaust velocity from a fusion reactor or a fusion engine, because he said the reason why, he said unless we can figure out how to get there faster, he just doesn't see it happening. It's not the technology, it's not what's needed for colonization. He said it's the transit time, and he thinks because of that he will not see it in his lifetime, and he's very depressed about it. You guys mentioned in the opening of your book how long did you say it would get to Mars using the exhaust velocities from fusion? I want to say you said 8 or 80.
Well, maybe a month or so if you're going fast. I'm very surprised Elon said that the transit time was because I thought even with chemical rockets, it's not
like 9 months.
It's not outrageous. You might be a bit crazy after, but it's not debilitating. So
we're all training right now.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just having a bad day. You know.
I don't know, man. It was on. I think it was on like Business Insider or Forbes. It wasn't like some like, it was. It's not that like 9 months is this impossible thing so much. It's like, I guess it's the entire picture is like every time you need X, Y, or Z, it's 9 months. If there's an accident, it's 9 months. It's, you only got the window every like 24 months to launch within that. So he was like, that in itself isn't that bad, but it's when everything is amplified by that. Think of all the problems we have just with the space station 220 miles above us. And he's like, every little thing, like, it's not that we don't know how to survive in low gravity or, we did on the moon. It's not like that we don't know how to do it, and it's not like we don't know how to send shit there. It's take any equal problem, and it's instead of the transit time being, 20 minutes, an hour, shoot shit up and dock? What if it's 9 months? And he said that is what he thinks is the nail in the coffin. So, to tie my whack job idea back together, do you think you got to get someone like Elon to go like, hey, fusion could do it? And I mean, what's he got, like $34 billion, $35 billion? And he said the only reason he's amassing wealth is so that he can foot the bill to get us to Mars faster, because he said he didn't want to depend on governments. So he's already said, that's what Tesla, that's what Starlink, Neuralink, that's what it's all for, is to just bring in cash so he can fund SpaceX, even if it's at a loss. It's just to get us to Mars. So he's already stated that he's willing to just drop his own bankrolls on it. Is it the perfect storm that you guys go up to Elon and be like, hello, Elon, can we tell you about our Lord and Savior fusion? Not that he doesn't know about it, but
I mean, he already knows. He already knows. So I've seen some interviews where he's interested in the problem and in magnetic confinement, which is the type of confinement that Jason and I work on, same as Eater. So he is, I think, aware, and obviously more money is definitely good, and smart people working on the problem is also good. But he actually wouldn't be the first billionaire to invest in fusion. Bill Gates has the Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which is a big basically charity to fund breakthrough energy ventures. So he and other billionaires have contributed to this. And so one of the most exciting private companies in fusion right now, Commonwealth Fusion Energy in Boston, is getting funding from Bill Gates and Breakthrough Energy Ventures.
So, but to get, let's say we take Elon's dream. He's obsessed with Mars. He's getting up there. What is Elon? He's like 58 years old. Mm-hmm. He doesn't get, and if he said that the only reason he's amassing wealth is to get to Mars, and now he's saying he doesn't think we'll get to Mars in his lifetime, now he's got all that wealth that if he doesn't think we can get there in this lifetime, he's liable to blow it getting us there just because that's what he wants. Do you think Elon will, I don't know, privatize, make his own Eater and just like 10 times the funding? Do you think there's any hope in that? I'm just from the layman, I'm trying to figure out how would we facilitate this, because obviously I can't do the research like you guys, but I can spitball stupid ideas, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it ferociously. Do you think there's any hope in that route? There's any hope in the take Elon's depression and desperation? I just finished a book yesterday called Nuking the Moon by Vince Horton, and it's about all the stupid ideas from like the 50s through like the 90s that we didn't do but got really close to doing. And it was all in, but the entire thing is it's all in the vein of the Cold War. And he said what drove these men to do these things, and he said desperation. He said if necessity is the mother of invention, he said desperation is the drunk uncle that calls once a year at 4 a.m. He goes, I've got a brilliant idea. It's gonna work. Don't hang up the phone. But he said that's what desperation is, and that's what led to the Cold War shit. Do you think we got to take in Elon's desperation?
Yes, we should definitely prey on Elon in his weakened state. Yeah. In order to advance our own interests. Definitely.
Yeah. Our own interests. Let's. Yeah. If he was depressed about like family or lost a family member, I'd say no. But he's depressed about not getting to Mars, and it's a mutual thing. He wants to get to Mars so that humanity can't be wiped out in one blow. You guys want fusion so that we can stop global warming and thus not be wiped out. I mean, it's I don't know. There's a little bit of overlapping. Yeah, we're preying on them like a bunch of hyenas, but I think it's ultimately the same thing. Okay, yeah, I'm finished with that rant.
Have you seen the movie? I think it's Moon before.
Yeah,
it's just called Moon.
Yeah.
Where they mine the moon for helium-3 for fusion.
Yeah.
So you're talking about kind of wacky ideas. I mean, it's realistic. So Jason was talking about how right now we're trying to do deuterium tritium fusion, but there's also deuterium helium-3 fusion, which is actually quite attractive. It's a bit harder to do, but it's better for some other reasons. The big problem is we don't really have helium-3 on Earth, and so people have quite seriously suggested that once we get, better transport to the moon, that helium-3 would be one of the most precious commodities in terms of mass to weight ratio.
Oh yeah. No, I've heard of that. Yeah. Jason, were you chiming in?
No. I would say, since we're talking about taking advantage of Elon, I think that it's definitely true that there are lots of ideas out there and research programs that are quite capital intensive that the community would like to do, but it can't afford to, like trying new configurations for tokamaks, stellarators, other devices. And it's actually, it is true that recently, like a few weeks ago, actually, the US government announced some funding for some of these kind of smaller, they're mainly lab-based or university-based reactor concepts, but not really reactor, they're kind of preliminary experimental concepts. So that was a really good start. I think that was really, really promising. But I still think there are a lot more ideas out there. I would say one of the biggest problems is that it's not like, even if you had an infinite amount of money for fusion now, you wouldn't be able to get it done in, say, like, a year, because these things take time. And there's also a limited number of people in the field as well, right? That's also another one of the big problems that we face. So Elon, I think he could help publicize it. I think he could get some of the best people to be really interested in fusion and to join the field as scientists or engineers or even business people. But these things take time. But if he were to do a sustained effort of extra funding, if he donated an extra $1 billion per year for 10 years, I'm sure that would have some pretty serious, significant results.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely not something that you can just, punch the gas on and get the same thing in a quicker amount of time. In an acute manner. It's kind of like, I've quoted it the last several podcasts, but it's like what Warren Buffett said. He was like, despite talent and effort, some things just take time. You can't get a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. Some things just take a little bit of time. And so you don't think that the age-old American philosophy of just hurl pallets of cash at it, you don't think that will get it done faster?
Oh, it would get it done faster. Yeah, that's for sure. I think we'd all agree it would get it done a lot faster. Yeah, that's for sure. The US has been talking about building its own kind of burning plasma physics experiment for a long time. Burning plasma physics basically just means that a large majority of the energy in the of the power output from the reactor is actually a large majority of the heating power actually comes from alpha particles from the deuterium fission reaction rather than external heating.
So it's a cool phenomena, but you can basically ignite fusion fuel in the same way you light a fire, right? So for a fire, you have a pile of wood and you provide some initial energy to get it going, and then it produces the energy to burn the next part of the wood, right? And so it kind of burns along. For fusion, you can actually do the same thing of once you heat it up to the temperature of the sun and get it going, it deposits about 20% of the energy it produces back into the plasma.
Okay.
And so you can literally cause the plasma to ignite and then turn off the heating power. But this is all theoretical. We've never actually achieved a burning or an ignited plasma in a device. And so ITER should be a burning plasma. It won't quite ignite, but it'll be very close.
And why won't it ignite? Is that something that hasn't been figured out yet, or is that just, again, sort of like, well, we wouldn't know what to do with it if it ignite? It would just burn everything.
So it's
a little more complex than that.
No. It's a really good question, and it's the fusion community might be a little bit bitter about it because ITER was originally designed to be an ignition experiment, to actually ignite. And then in, I think it was 1996, the US pulled out of the project, saying that it was basically too big, too expensive. And so they redesigned it to be a bit more modest. So instead of ignition, it would just be a burning plasma experiment. And so then the US rejoined, and that's the design that is under construction today.
So what ways would get fusion fast-tracked? I listened to our first podcast just to sort of refresh myself, and when I say we, I mean more so me, was very big on the idea of fear, saying that drove us. I think you guys were a little more like, all right, psychopath. But it's what you know, what would really get it going? Because I mean, its value is absolutely undeniable. So I mean, method one is we prey on Elon. You know, hey Elon, you're never gonna see your dream come true. It's all for naught unless you dump $30 billion in the ITER. Do you think that, because it seems like it would absolutely have a military function, or I mean, it does not seem like it's, I don't know, it just, like nuclear reactors or just, you know, nuclear energy in general, it's like, yeah, you know, if you want the thing that never turns off and can run, you know, Project Iceworm in near Thule Air Base in Greenland, that was, I think, the first military base to have a nuclear reactor. It was in like 1951 or 3, and they said because there's no other way that they could keep it running, because it was so, I guess, removed from civilization. They said it would have cost or taken 850,000 barrels of oil a year, but the problem was it was like negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit all the time, and there's no way to get it there. So instead, they had this nuclear reactor, and voila. So, I mean, there's definitely a military, and the point of that was so we could hide our nukes in the ice. But again, so it's all got this, like, you know, if it's just this idyllic, like, nuclear reactor, we can have clean energy, it's, you know, sounds great, but no one really gives a shit. If it's like, hey, we can nuke Japan, or if it's like, hey, we could have a base up in the North Pole, then all of a sudden you get the full force of Uncle Sam behind it, and it happens yesterday, right? It gets boom, boom, it's done, it's perfect, it's good, you know? It's like the guy that came up with the idea for the laser. Literally brought it to DARPA. DARPA classified it. Bam! It was done because it didn't catch Teller's eye, and it right to the forefront. And then, you know, eventually something like 80. I think the guy's patent, something like 80% of all lasers today use his original idea. So the rest of society benefits from it, just like the space race. It all sort of trickled down into our society. What way does fusion catch the eye, the lustful eye of the military? Because you kind of need it. That's, I mean, they've got the big bucks. They've got the unlimited checks.
I mean, so fusion has already been involved with the
hydrogen bombs.
Right? It caught the military definitely that way.
Yeah.
As far as controlled fusion, I mean, there is a lot of interest of neutron sources. And I don't know, Jason, do you know the actual reason the military wants neutron sources? I know you can do like border checks, so you can check for nuclear material if you have a neutron source. But there has been some military investments in and
like warhead verification and stuff, I think. But I'm not sure exactly how it works. But I think it's good for these kind of schemes where it's quite complicated. I don't understand it because there's a lot of background to learn, especially in terms of like the international relations side of how this stuff works. But in terms of credibly disarming, as far as I understand, having a strong neutron source is actually very useful. Someone called Rob Goldston and I forget the name of the other political scientist at Princeton whom he works with. They've written a few papers on this. But yes, as a neutron source, it's useful. I mean, also just deploying it as a power unit, on barracks, for example, that's very useful. Aircraft carriers, I mean, you can see those guys it's basically like, I mean, they're pretty much unsinkable, right? But if you did sink one with a fission reactor in it, it's I mean, I'm sure they're pretty sturdy, but still. I mean, also from the space perspective,
I think aircraft carriers are pretty sturdy. Yeah.
No. I mean the fact that if it were to sink, the reactor inside it is very secure. It's not going to leak.
It has happened to submarines. Nuclear submarines have broken apart and sunk before. But it's so deep normally that it doesn't cause any problems. Any radioactive waste just becomes diluted because the oceans are enormous.
I think in terms of making a Mars colony or whatever, all the helium-3 is already there. So if you have an advanced plasma physics understanding, then fusion reactors are actually quite a natural choice of reactor for powering the settlers' colonies or whatever.
So again, I think it's more so my limited understanding, so I can't really discuss technical details because it's 10 miles over my head. But I mean, what I can understand is that it's not getting the funding and resources. It's like what you said about global warming, unlike a pandemic or like Hurricane Katrina, it's very, very slow. It's just very slow, so it's not in our face screaming, right? It's not someone breaking down your front door. It's someone like whittling away. And what way? So that being said, it's not like intelligent people like you guys, you see the benefits of fusion and what it will do for humanity and society, both in global warming and in just, quality of life directly correlated to energy production, or I guess cheapness of energy production. So its value is there's no arguing against it. But I know I'm talking in circles, but what is the reason that it's not being absolutely bankrolled? Like it seems so obvious, and I don't mean that in like a tree hugging, like, save the whales, man. I mean, like, no, even just from like the darkest, like, military power structure point of view, it's like the power of the sun, and not just in a hydrogen bomb, but completely independent of everyone, total security. You don't have to depend on anyone for anything. Why is this not being just
because I think people view it as science fiction. People don't believe that it can work yet.
Okay.
And I think that, or at least I hope that when ITER shows that you can generate net energy from fusion reactions, that will change. I think people view fusion in the same way that they would view like a space elevator or something of, oh, this technology is really cool and in the future we'll have it and it'll be awesome, but it's not something that they entertain as a serious possibility today.
I would also add to that and say that in the past, in the 1950s when fusion, and the 60s when fusion was being investigated in its early days, I think we were quite optimistic about how quickly we would be able to realize a commercial fusion reactor, and that's because we didn't understand a lot of the physics that takes place and lots of the material science and engineering limitations. So, and there were several kind of notorious examples where it seemed like fusion was so close, but actually it was either fabrication or a misreading or misunderstanding. So there's the famous Zeta experiment in the UK. There's also the cold fusion nonsense that happened. So I think it's kind of also a fatigue, right? Like how many projects are there actually which have had a very well-defined outcome, which is like a working fusion reactor that is able to put power on the grid and do so affordably. We had that dream since the 1950s, or maybe even late 1940s, and it's been since 1945, 75 years, and the goal is still the same, pretty much, and we've been working damn hard at it, And I think it's just like we're not used to working with things on this timescale. Like a fission reactor, the first fission reactors were like in the mid-50s, right? That was like literally 15 years after the Chicago Pile 1 or whatever it was called. So I don't think we're used to things with that lag time. Like the CERN Large Hadron Collider, those various upgrades took, maybe a decade each, maybe even less. The International Space Station, the Manhattan Project, the Apollo Project, all these things, all these great accomplishments, maybe not the Manhattan, but anyway, that's a different thing. They were really fast. And now this is so slow in comparison, especially in democratic societies, right? Where, if you're a politician, you want to be able to promise things and invest money in things that will, if you're being somewhat skeptical, maximize your probability of being re-elected. And hopefully that correlates with good things in society as well, like health and wealth and all that kind of stuff. But often, saying, oh yeah, we're going to put all this money into fusion reactors that might never come. It's like, if I were just a skeptical, self-interested politician, why would I invest in that on a project of that timescale? Because there's probably a very small percentage of the voters are actually going to respond positively to something like that. When I could be spending it on, lovely military jets that look super fancy, or building hospitals, or educating people, or international aid, all these things. So it's just bloody hard to have a political and democratic system that actually prioritizes a project of this lead time.
Enter Elon Musk, right? We've been saying we're going to go to Mars since did Wernher von Braun want to go to Mars, or did he just want a space station? Regardless, whatever.
He wants to go to Mars, yeah.
I'm sure the Nazis wanted to go to Mars. Why not? But it's so, publicly we've been saying, oh, we should go to, but that just gets kicked down the road forever and ever and ever. And then Elon comes in and he's like, we're going, and it's sexy, it's cool, it's the guy that makes Tesla. And now all of a sudden it's like, it's almost like a meme. It's sort of like a cool thing. Let's go to Mars. Do you have to have Elon throw his mimetic power behind fusion?
Maybe fusion needs an Elon to some extent, because I think one of the tough things about fusion is we're all scientists, or engineers mainly. We're not very good at self-promotion, I think. At least from like an advertising perspective. Like Elon obviously understands public perception exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant for doing it. And I agree. I mean, the problem is still, like, I would say going to Mars is maybe still easier than building a fusion reactor, a commercially viable fusion reactor. So it's still at least human travel to Mars. It's still harder, and it's less clear, because for going to Mars, we have the rockets, right? We have the astronauts, and I think we have most of the technology that allows people to live there. It's just logistically very hard, and yes, there are some tweaking we need to do to the space program. But for fusion, it's just like, you need the reactor. You either have the reactor or you don't have it, and we don't have it. And it's also, I'm not sure if it's as easy to capture the imagination of people, because maybe it is, but it takes more explanation. It's just like the idea of going to Mars. Humans love exploring, right? And being able to point to the night sky and say, we can go there one day. And people are just like, rightly so, fired up by that idea, right? Or we can terraform Mars, all these incredible ideas. So easy to explain, but for fusion, it's more complicated and less tangible, perhaps.
So, back to what I was saying, preying on Elon. He can take that sexy thing, Mars. Let's go, point up to the stars. Let's go there. Sorry, tie my shoe. Let's go there. And yeah, we have you nailed it. We have all the technology. We have the spaceships. We have the astronauts. We pretty much think we know how we could, sustain life there. But now you have Elon. Wild card. I don't think we'll be there in my lifetime, and that depresses me. So it's now like you almost have this like pre-existing infrastructure, this like societal, mimetic, this like social infrastructure where it's like Mars has been made sexy. Elon is Tony Stark. He's going to get us there. We kind of have this momentum. Let's go. But now he's saying it can't be done. So what I'm saying is it's not that he has to do the hard sell of self-fusion to the public, self-fusion to kids, so much as that he's already successfully sold the desire to get to Mars, but he now thinks it can't be done. If he can insert fusion as not selling it as fusion, but selling it as the necessary thing to get us to Mars, it's like, I can't, you're a kid, I can't hype you up to eat your vegetables, but, if you eat your vegetables, you can have ice cream, or, Superman eats his vegetables. All of a sudden you can take that same thing and sort of turn it into a delivery vehicle for something cool. I don't want to do this, but if, I don't want to do my homework, but if I do my homework, I can go out and get drunk with my friends. Okay, let's do the homework, let's get it done. Same thing. What if he takes that sort of pre-existing hype and social image of we're going to Mars? He already did it with launching his Roadster into space. That became a meme. That was fucking hilarious. He shot a fucking sports car into space. Like, he's already got that backing. What if you just, instead of taking fusion as like, hey guys, here's sustainable energy, despite how, great that is, and instead he just said, here's the last missing piece. If we do this, we go to Mars. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, do you know Elon's? Are you friends with him?
Yeah. I'll give him a call.
Okay, that would be great. That sounds good.
Screw you, Jason.
So obviously, again, it would be great if more people got involved. But I think the kind of bigger point is a very good one of just the fusion community. I think fusion is really cool, and it's technical and complex, but it's still cool. You can still show people how cool it is without having to resort to equations or anything. And so the field, I think, could do a much better job of showing its enthusiasm for fusion and kind of inspiring the public. And I think that because it's government funded almost exclusively, there's not the motivation or the drive to really communicate to the public. Private companies do a really good job of advertising and marketing, right? And in fusion, the small number of private companies that are in the field do, to put it frankly, I think they do much better at selling fusion than the government labs and the government efforts that have just a whole lot more money and resources behind them.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why Jason and I are writing the book and so keen to talk to anyone or just build up excitement, right?
Yeah. So it all comes down to selling it to Elon, or you guys get
preying on Elon. More of the story.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I gotta wrap this up in like 2-3 minutes. But what just happened? How did I get? Oops. I don't know why.
I can still see you and hear you.
Yeah, and it still says recording. So
okay. I don't know why my screen just split in half. But yeah, I gotta go in like 2 minutes. But on the darker side, it's if preying on Elon to make it the sexy thing doesn't work, do we gotta resort to fear? Start a rumor that says the Chinese are building their own eater. We can't be left behind. They are?
But
okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, it's like Dr. Strangelove.
Well, it's probably actually going to be more advanced in some ways than ITER. I think it's
perfect.
It's
perfect.
It's supposed to. Depending on what happens, right? But it is planned to come online after ITER. Let's see. I think some components of it won't be as advanced, but I do know that so-called Q engineering, which is the basically, if I put in a bunch of energy, do I get more energy out as a whole power plant system? And the Chinese are saying, yes, let's try to accomplish that. So yes, the Chinese are actually, if the Chinese basically have all the technology down before the West and basically monopolize the technology for how to build these plants, I mean, that's a huge advantage. And I don't think yeah, I'm not sure that that's a great thing to have a single country,
no.
Especially one that doesn't, respect
general
democracy
human rights.
and the way that we do in the West. Yeah, exactly.
So, but I think that's perfect. I think it's perfect in that it's terrifying, and I think that's what will catalyze us. We can paint it up as sexy. Hey, Elon said fusion's cool. Yeah, that's cool. But whatever, you go to the next thing. If you can get like a Red Scare Part 2, get a bunch of propaganda posters going out, like those World War II ones, just have really offensive like depictions of Chinese men being like, we can't let them get fusion. You have Uncle Sam. I don't know, man. I think that's how you get that war footing money. I think that's how you get the, that's how you get, some wartime manufacturing on fusion. I think that's how you get it tomorrow, is you say the Chinese have it.
I mean, it's definitely true that the Apollo project wouldn't have been as fast.
Exactly.
If it weren't for the. I mean, that's both an inspiring thing and a terrifying thing about human nature.
Yeah.
How do we accomplish great things without being scared?
Yeah.
Something else.
Yeah.
Maybe it's hard. Maybe it's impossible.
Well, I think that's the impossible question to figure out. So let's take the easier question, and that's how to create a fusion reactor. I don't think we'll ever understand the human condition, but I don't know, man. I think if you have China coming out, I think you'll have Trump tweeting about it tomorrow. Fusion reactor, it will be the best ever. $100 trillion tomorrow. Take our great American minds, the brightest sun. You know it. I know it. Yeah. Fake news, fake fusion. We have it here. Yeah. I know the guys personally. Great scientists, brilliant scientists. You should see their stars. It's wonderful. Justin Ball, Jason Parisi, thank you very much for doing the podcast again.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And the Future of Fusion, your book on Amazon, and Jason, you said you were going to narrate it, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. If you want, you can just leave this channel open. I'll start reading.
Do you know I was actually thinking about that this morning when I went for a run? I was like, I wonder if I just asked Jason to read his book. I'll leave the room. I'll go play Xbox, so you don't have to have any like performance anxiety and just read the book. I was like, I wonder if he would actually do that. I would just leave it on for 8 hours. But not right now.
That could be quite fun, actually. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, I think you should, man. I think you absolutely should. Yeah. All right, guys. Let's, I'll email you. I will definitely make sure to go back through the book and try to understand. Actually, I'll do a little more research on Elon and see if I can't get some good propaganda drummed up. But, I'll email you guys. Let's definitely set up another one. And thank you very much for doing it. The Future of Fusion Energy by Jason Parisi and Justin Ball. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Spot on.
Take care. Stay safe.
Bye, you too.
Peace.